Hey guys, this is Dan Nichols here on the webpage, harderthanamofo.com. We have got Dino. Dino, so you're a martial artist that has worked with George. You and I have never talked, just a little over Facebook, but so when did you work with George?
It was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. Um, I was looking up Sistema online, and a lot of people, when you bring up Sistema, there's a big crowd that says Sistema is fake, big crowd that says it's real. I did my research on George, and it showed that he was like in the top five in the world for Sistema. He literally lives 15 minutes away from me, so I decided to go see for myself what George was all about. Gave him a phone call. We talked on the phone for about 2 hours. He finally said, "Hey, you know what? You seem legit. Come train with me." So that's how we kind of met each other. I went to his place and we started training. And the big thing is you see George in videos, and it just looks so uh, not to say staged, but it's almost incomprehensible what you see. You think that people are playing along with him, or it's got to be part of a show or something. But the first time we were standing there, and we were moving around a little bit, and George just kind of looked at me and he said, "Do you believe it?" I'm like, "It's not that I don't believe, I just don't know yet." And he goes, "You just need to feel it, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah."
Oh,
And man,
those words,
he
you need
he
to
hit
feel it.
me. He hit me in the chest, and I'm going to tell you what. I have never been hit that hard before. I mean, it sent me flying. At the time, I weighed 230 pounds. I'm five
Wow.
foot 11, 230 pounds. And I mean, it sent me. I was in awe. I could not believe it. And I'll tell you what. You'll hear people talk about George, and the correct term about George is that guy hits like a freight train. I have
Yeah.
never felt power like that before in my life.
I'd say,
Um,
have you ever been in a car accident?
I haven't, but
Okay.
after being hit by George, I don't want to because it's
Yeah.
probably how it feels.
Yeah,
You
well,
know.
that was what I was gonna say. It's kind of I've been in a couple. One was really bad,
Mhm.
but man, I'll tell you, it's that out of this world surreal experience where you're like,
Right,
what just happened? And you're trying to gather your thoughts
right,
and man, that is a beautiful sound bite. We're gonna use that little piece right there. That was great. That was great. Man, I could end it with
right,
that. That was cool. So
right,
so yeah, yeah. So yeah, this whole page is about striking
mhm,
power, about having
right.
about learning that striking power.
Right. That the deceptive thing about George is and the way he hits is when you watch people different type of people that study different things, when they hit, they have to wind up. You always see the hips move or you always see the shoulders move, With George, he doesn't move the hips, he doesn't wind shoulders up. I mean, this is coming straight at you. And I mean that's what will really boggle your mind. Is that how he makes it happen? It when you look at it, actually when you feel it and you see it coming, and you're like, how is this guy hitting this hard? There's like, I mean, there's no wind up. It's not like he is coming way back, 10 miles away trying to get the speed up to hit you. I mean, it is really close, and it will blow your mind
It
when you get
reminds
there.
me of the Luther Vandross song "Here and Now."
Right, right, right,
Boom, bam,
right,
done. Yeah,
right,
from I don't care if it's an inch away or if it's 6 feet,
right,
whatever, a few feet away. I mean, it doesn't
right,
matter, man. He can hit from any angle like
right.
that and create that kind of power. And I know a lot of guys are like, oh, well, that's this kind of
Yeah.
man. Yeah, and what's really cool, Dino, is I didn't even
Mhm.
ask. Like, do you have a martial arts pedigree? Had you done it prior?
So when I was young, I did some martial arts, but I'm mostly a grappler and submission type guy. My
Cool.
background is I worked in nightclubs for about 20 years doing security, but I before that I went to a school in Aspen, Colorado called Executive Security International. So I'm actually a CPS, a Certified Protection Specialist. I'm a professional bodyguard.
Okay.
So I've had different hand-to-hand training from different types of people, but I'm going to tell you what, after I started studying with George and I saw it was capable, I took everything and threw it away because I'm like, this guy is amazing. I'd never seen nothing like what he does.
Ha ha.
Never,
I
you know,
love it. I love
you
it,
know.
man. That's
And
cool.
I'll tell you what, the other thing is, not only are his punches, but man, he has a shoulder hit. He'll
Yeah.
stand like 2 inches away from you, and he will hit you with his shoulder.
I've been hit by that before.
I'm going to tell
Unreal.
you what, I it dropped me.
Boom.
Right.
Boom. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like the funny thing is when you see stuff like this, it's like you're almost like a glutton for punishment, right?
Oh, totally.
Because he did it to me. And I'm like, hold on a
Do it
second,
again.
do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, right? And I cannot, it's just one of those things where you're like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but yet he is just the power that he has, and it just sends you flying, and it's crazy. But it's also super cool because you start learning that, what I think that's great about George is that he kind of shows you that everybody's been thinking inside the box for years.
Yeah.
And he is so outside the box, and the way he does things, it opens up your mind to realize and go, you know what? There is different techniques, and there are people that are capable of power that you've never felt before,
And the beauty of that is, and I've said this before in other interviews, there's two kinds of people that go to see George. People that don't come back because they just can't handle what happened to their foundation of knowledge, if you will. And then there's people that say, okay, man, I've emptied the box, baby. Come on in. I want to learn.
Right. And, I've had friends. I had a friend of mine that did not believe the power of George. And I said, listen, I'll bring you there one day. Let's go, And this guy was even, he was 6'4", 340 pounds. And the funny thing is, I brought him down, and George looks and he just smiles and he's like, I like big guys. I'm like, oh yeah. So he starts playing with my buddy, and my buddy's kind of like, this is kind of mumbo jumbo or whatever. And George, famous words, you just need to feel it, right? And boom, he hit my buddy and he sent him flying. And I've never seen, my buddy's a big guy and he doesn't get moved very often. You know what I'm saying? And this totally surprised my friend.
You're not talking about Joe, are you?
No. Okay. My buddy's name was Phil.
Okay.
And after that first night, he came back and he was learning it too.
Wow.
Because it just, like I said, if you've ever, people that have been around real world stuff and been in the fights, when you come across George, it's just something that, I've never seen before.
Has your striking power increased since knowing George?
Yes. And, like my biggest thing was, I was never really a striker. I was always, a grab and submission. Yeah. And he taught me, and I'll tell you what, like after working with him for a couple months, he's like, man, he goes, you're starting to hit with more power, so I could feel a difference, and like I said, everything he teaches you, I mean, not only his striking power, but his knife disarms. The great thing about George is, I mean, you've hung around him enough, and you've probably
since seventh grade.
Right. Yeah. The one thing that's so amazing about George too is how fluid his body movements are. I mean, he is just fluid, I mean, and then, when I'm sure you've seen the videos of him saying, he's got some money and he'll tell them, go ahead and punch me in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And you never get there. You'll never hit him. Yeah. He's just never there, and that's, the way he moves his body, his knife techniques, his power. I mean, it is literally, I've got people ask me all the time, I want to go train, I want to do Krav Maga, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. I'm like, listen, you need to go see George. Yeah. If you really want to learn some stuff, because, a lot of problems with everything else is because I struggled at first. I before I talked to George, I was thinking about taking Krav Maga or something else.
Yeah. Well, it's got a sexy feel, right? Military art. There's something really cool about that.
And you sit there and then you kind of dissect everything, right? And you're like, what? All these schools are just cookie cutter stuff. You know what I mean? They're not really, they're like a production line, right? I mean, if you can go take something and become an instructor in a year, I mean, really, how great is that? Do you know what I mean? So then when you come across George, and it's with the style he teaches, it's he's encompassing everything. He's not just, hit somebody in the throat, hit their eyes, and take their nuts out. You know what I mean? This is a whole different thing. It's the availability that he teaches you, the power that he's going to teach you, how to take punches, how to move your body. It's a whole package.
That's awesome, man. That's good. I love that. And you just reminded me of that shoulder punch. I haven't felt that in a few years, but I had a Kempo grandmaster say to me, and he said, Dan, it's just another level.
Right.
It's not something that, it's a whole nother world almost. Like you said,
right.
It's like so many are in this box, and
right.
George has torn this up and said, no, and I know George isn't the only guy that can hit with that kind of power, because right. I know that there's a couple others personally. I know who these guys are.
Right.
But you ain't getting to them, with this course we're putting together. I mean, you can get this instruction. Right. You can get one-on-one by way of we're going to do live, right. video and that kind of stuff too.
Yep.
but he just walks you through the whole thing. I mean, I just interviewed
Right.
before you, a couple hours before you, I interviewed a guy that's been only about 5 years in martial arts, young guy. He was young.
Right.
He's the youngest one I interviewed. The rest of us have all been these 50 plus guys.
Right.
And but the cool thing about that, they've been around the block. They've seen it, man. They're not impressed by, oh, you got to see my guy, and you're like, oh boy, okay, here goes another one. But you know, and people get that. That's what they think about when they hear the George thing. They're like, yeah, whatever. Like I've heard about this, and it's, but yeah, and like I said, it's just another level. And I don't mean like the difference between a brown belt and a black belt.
No,
I mean
no.
another whole nother kind of sphere, if you will, of understanding of body mechanics.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, that's the other thing. This isn't some 100 hours in the lotus position kind of stuff.
Right.
This is deep thinking through the mechanics,
Right.
through the physics, if you will, and the psychology.
Right.
You know, of what you're putting into that, about you know how you move through something, and the fact that, like you said, about when you get hit and you didn't have the bruising. That's interesting. Because another guy I talked to, he said, he goes, I was pretty beat up, and anyway, it's just funny. You talk to different guys, but in general, that is a common thing, though. You get struck really hard, and you think you're going to be bruised, and you're like, no, I'm not.
Right.
But it echoes through every cell in your body. You feel it to your toes and the top of your head, like, oh God, that didn't feel good.
Right. You know, and that's the thing with it. Like, you know, you go and you work out with George, and you know he's kind of body hardening you in a way. He's getting you used to taking punches, and you're like, man, I'm going to be sore for like 3-4 days after this. You wake up in the morning, you're refreshed, you're okay to go.
I actually feel better sometimes.
Right.
I don't mean that it couldn't be disabling as well, but I would feel better on a decent strike, like sometimes like to chill out before. I'm in the entertainment world. I have a business I've done for years, and occasionally just hitting myself hard. It just feels good. You know, you move that through you, and it's relaxing. You know, too. So
anyway, and you know he does teach that too. You know, with all the stuff, it's not all about that stuff too. It's all about, you know, getting your mind to where it needs to be, being relaxed. You know. And he does a lot with that too.
It's a big piece of it. He would tell you it's probably 80% of it. If you're going to sharpen the axe, spend your time sharpening this. Because this is your biggest holdback from understanding how to develop true power.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Dino, man, awesome. Do you have any other closing words here?
You know, all I can say is George is great. He's humble. He is the real deal. You know, I wish more people would actually get the chance to train with George so they could see that, you know, everything he does, there's no fakeness about it. You know, like you said, on his videos and on camera, yes, does it look fake? But it's because he has to slow everything down when he puts it on video. That's why it looks fake.
And you can't feel that power.
No,
you know,
you can't.
If you see me hit on tape and I hit somebody, you're not gonna, you know, it's gonna look almost the same exact way as when George does it. But the difference is, like, you know, how about night and day?
Right. You know, the other thing is, you know, when there's a video he has up of me with him, and I'm trying to hold his arm, and he is just spinning me around like a rag doll.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, that's not me playing with him or anything. That's me trying to stop his arm from moving, and it looks fake on video. But I mean, I could not stop his arm from moving, and he's, you know, I look like a rag doll, you know. So
I've seen that video. It's on YouTube. Yeah, I've seen that. And and if somebody's watching it that doesn't know that, they look like, oh, here's another student kowtowing to his instructor so that he doesn't offend him or her, right?
Right.
Like, I'm going to give you this punch, and then you're going to block it, you know, and different deal. So
right.
Man, thanks so much, Dino.
No
I appreciate
problem.
it. George
you.
appreciates it, man.